Namo Buddhaya, Deepji. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya, everyone who is joining from wherever they are joining. Namo Buddhaya. Good evening or good morning. Okay, so I hope my voice is audible and we start our session. Okay, so so from today a slight change. We will be doing Vipassana meditation, and which is basically a progression of Anapan only, right? So I'm just giving some instructions. Um, um, right. So first is sitting comfortably, keeping the spine should be straight. Eyes can be closed or half closed, right? Whichever way you prefer. Second, what we can do is that we can bring our awareness on the abdomen area. Now, this Vipassana meditation instruction is based on the teachings of Mahasi Sayadaw, who's a very eminent Burmese monk, right? So basically, there are many traditions in Vipassana, and whichever tradition you feel comfortable, you can follow that. Now, so we generally bring our awareness to the abdomen. If you are comfortable with nostrils, that is also fine. So bring awareness on the abdomen area and to the rise and fall of the abdomen area. Now, we do not have to change the pattern of the breathing. So this is exactly like the Anapan meditation. We do not change the pattern of the breathing, and we keep just being aware of the breathing in and out. Now, in Vipassana, we basically, in the Mahasi's tradition, uh, if you're a beginner, it helps to give it a word. Like just you can just keep it, note each rising as rising, each falling as falling, or in out, whichever you want to give. Right now, you have to do it mentally. Do not verbalize this, and you can do this for a few minutes. Now, as you do this for a few minutes, your mind will start to concentrate, right? If we do 15 minutes of meditation, if the mind doesn't get concentrated, still a lot of thoughts and all come, then continue with the rising and falling only. Do not move to kind of vipassana, right? So when we are concentrating on our breath, this is basically anapana, mindfulness of breathing. But then, if few minutes into your meditation, it may be 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whichever. As your mind gets sufficiently concentrated, then you can let go of this mindfulness of breathing. You can let go of this breathing as an object, right? And then you can just be open to anything that is arising. Right now, when any pain arises, you can note it as pain, pain, pain. Just keep noting it as pain, pain. It's not a mantra. It's not a mantra. Just put a word. If you don't want to put a word, that's also fine. But just note the exact thing that is happening, which is coming up. Right? If visions arises, some vision of a person arises, you can just note it as vision, vision, or looking, looking. Sensation arises, note it as sensation, sensation. If feelings, if any frustration arises, that what am I doing? Is this the right way? Just note it as frustration. Doubt arises on this practice, on the path, just note it as doubt, doubt. If you feel confused now as to what to note, see, what we have to note is something which is clearly distinct, right? Now, if you there are like two or three things that you are able to observe and you are confused, so note the confused state of mind. Now, this, as per whatever little I understand, it is so aligned to the middle discourses 10, which is the Satipatthana Sutta, which is exactly, alignment. If I will not say anything about the other traditions, but there the focus is mostly on the sensations. But as per what Buddha taught, it is anything that arises: body, mind, feelings, and objects of the mind. So anything that arises, we just are aware that they are arising. Now, what happens during by doing that is that as we keep on, practicing mindfulness of anything that arises, we start to get insight that nothing is permanent. Whatever is arising will fall away, right? And what it does is it takes away our mind from the craving, which is keeping us in samsara. So it's very deep, and this will not happen in one day or 1 month, right? It will take some time to for that insight to arise. And when that insight arises, it's a jackpot, right? Okay. Now there may be a situation in the meditation when you have nothing to note, right? The mind is totally concentrated. You have nothing to note, so you can just note it as nothing, nothing, or you can move back to the rise and fall of the breathing. Another situation may be that mind becomes unconcentrated. That means thoughts come in the mind, and lot of thoughts and all start interrupting. So you can move back to the rising, falling of the abdomen. This abdomen can be your safe place. You can come down back to the abdomen, do the breathing, concentrate yourself. Once the mind is concentrated, then again move to vipassana. That means just observing whatever is arising. So I hope the instructions are not confusing. If they are confusing, please note it as confusing, right? And we can discuss after the meditation any questions you have. And yeah, yes, you can please. Okay, fine. Sure. Thanks, Deepji. Let me just, yeah. And we can definitely discuss later on anything which is confusing. Okay, so let us start for 15 minutes, and I will start a timer for 15 minutes, and let us see how our meditation goes today, right? So okay, let us start, and close your eyes, keep your spine straight. It helps in maintaining awareness, and gently bring your attention to your abdomen. As you breathe in, the abdomen rises. As you breathe out, the abdomen falls. Do not change the pattern of the breathing. Label each rising as rising. Label each falling as falling if you wish to. We have to just note rising, falling. Keep noting the rising and falling of the abdomen. Rising, falling. At any point that your mind gets concentrated sufficiently, you can move from mindfulness of breathing to mindfulness of anything that arises, be it pain, be it sensation, be it some visions. Whatever arises, keep noting it. Keep noting whatever arises. Any feelings are arising, noted them as feelings, feelings. Keep noting whatever is arising in this moment with equanimity. Keep noting if at any time mind becomes unconcentrated or unstable, come back to the rise and fall of the abdomen. Keep noting. Just keep noting with equanimity, neither grasping at something nor running away from it. Just keep noting what arises in this moment. Just a gentle awareness. As you note, you'll know that the states of mind, the states of body keep changing. Nothing is permanent. Everything is changing. Keep noting. The mind got lost. Note it as returning back to this awareness. Keep noting whatever is arising in this moment. If you are confused in any way, note your state of mind as confused. Just be open and keep noting whatever is arising. The mind is still, note it as still. Keep noting. Now we come to the end of the meditation. If you wish, you can take an intention that whatever merit you have gained from this meditation, may it go to all those who are suffering. May they get free from suffering. May they find peace. Namo Buddhaya. So, right. Just a second, give me 1 minute. So, Deepji, if you have any questions on the meditation, you can ask, or anything was not clear or something, we can discuss, and then we will move to the book reading.
Namo Buddhaya, Vinodji.
Namo Buddhaya, बोलिए. Yes, please tell.
When I was doing this meditation, like
Yeah,
leveling the thoughts and feelings, whatever is coming,
yeah,
that time, what I observed, when I level a thought, that thought got dissolved. Is it the
right.
right way?
Absolutely, yes. And that is what happens. That the moment we bring our awareness to that thought or that sensation, you will observe that dissolving.
Yes, yes,
Now, not
yes.
every thought gets dissolved, not every sensation. Now, then when there are difficult sensations that are there, they may persist, right? So if it is
Okay.
dissolved, it's very good. And this is how we see that how when we become mindful, the thoughts, the sensations only persist till the time we are not mindful of them, right? It's like a kind of a dark room with cockroaches, right? As you turn on the light, all the cockroaches will just run away, right? So our unhelpful kind of thoughts, sensations, they will only persist if we are not mindful of them. So as we shine the torch of mindfulness, they will dissolve. But if they don't dissolve, then that's the problem. We can come to that. But if it's dissolving, that's good,
Okay, understood, understood. Okay.
right? And if they don't dissolve, then for some time we can continue to be mindful of those thoughts and sensations. Now if they are not dissolving, then one option is leaving them and coming back to our home base, making our mind even more concentrated. Because see, if your thought is the kind of, I will say, stickiness, or a this what I will say is a stubborn thought, it is at this level. Your concentration level has to be at this level so that it can kind of dissolve it. But if now there are certain like difficult memories or some traumas from the past that may come up, right? I-
Hmm.
and then your concentration level is this. So what we have to do is that if we notice that those thoughts are not dissolving, or those sensations are not dissolving, we come back to the rise and fall of the abdomen, make our mind even more concentrated, and then come back to those difficult thoughts. It's like
Like bodily
it,
sensation don't dissolve, like bodily sensation, some
yes.
pain.
Yes, pain and all also. See, what Mahasi says is that if pain arises, our natural tendency is so. See, this is what we observe when we are in meditation. We observe that our natural tendency is craving for pleasurable things and running away from unpleasurable things. So, in the day, if you spend, you will see a lot of times you will itch, you will change your posture just because something is not comfortable. In Vipassana, what we do is we sit. Even if now a difficult a pain arises in the body, right? So we our immediate impulse, we recognize that to move away or to change our posture, but we don't do that. We remain in that same posture. So it's like advisable that if you're doing 15 minutes, 30 minutes meditation, for the entire 30 minutes, you take an intention, I'll maintain the same posture. And when pain arises, I'll just be witness of that pain. Just keep witnessing the pain. Keep shining the light of awareness on the pain. And you will note that it's not a pain in the body. It's basically pain in the mind, which is coming out as a pain in the body. And in 90% of the cases, the pain will get released. It will dissolve to a very reasonable amount. Either it will be fully dissolved or dissolve to a very reasonable amount. Still, Mahasi says that if it doesn't do after, and it becomes uncomfortable for you, right, beyond a point. So some uncomfort we will live with in our meditation. But if it becomes uncomfortable beyond a point, then, for example, if you're just like shifting in your position, so we note it as moving, or whatever we are doing, we will fully be aware of the change in our posture as we are doing that posture. For example, if an itch comes to me here, I will note my hand which is moving up and making that itch and then coming back down. So till that minute thing I will observe, right? So that
Okay,
has to be
understood. Understood.
right. Right. So actually, one thing is that if you do this for longer periods, kind of 30 minutes, 1 hour, then it's really lot of clearing happens. It's the defilements we have, these impulses that we have of craving and aversion, which keeps us in samsara, right? We keep craving even for rebirth to experience the pleasures and keep running away. We just sit and these unhelpful tendencies dissolve. There's something actually, I will read it out about I read something. Let me just read it out. It's from the book Pressing the Pure Honey, which actually I was reading this. It's a basically analysis of the sutras. So let me just read out that particular thing. So there's this thing uh, that Buddha said, that there's this just para that I'm reading. Buddha said, if you see Buddha's teachings on the middle discourses, everywhere there is a reference to four absorptions, right? First absorption, second absorption, third absorption, fourth absorption. Fourth absorption, the person attains, extends the knowledge towards three things like recollection of his past lives, uh, about the knowledge of how sentient beings get born as per their deeds, and the third is the Four Noble Truths, and the person becomes an arahant. This is like the standard what Buddha has taught. But some of the discourses Buddha also teaches about vipassana. That means seeing things as they are. So now there is this thing in this book. Uh, uh, it's by Sharda Rogel. It's a great book on what she's done on the middle discourses, kind of she's made summaries and all. So there's this thing I'll just read. The Buddha refers to jhanas, the eight meditative absorptions. It's actually four. It's mentioned eight because of some reason. Repeatedly as an important part of the gradual path of liberation. However, for most lay practitioners, jhana practice is like you take just mindfulness of breathing and deep go there and reach that deep level where you reach the fourth absorption. But for most lay practitioners like us, jhana practice has not been accessible. In order to attain jhana, special meditative conditions are needed. Like it's like you should be in a forest, fully secluded, right? Then you can achieve that deep level. I did not elaborate on them in my notes for this reason. Bhikkhu Bodhi suggests in his introduction, the Buddha invariably includes them in the full gradual training because of the deep concentration they induce, provides a solid base for the cultivation of insight. That means the deep concentration that they provides the base for the insight practice, which is seeing things as they are. In another section, he says the jhanas by themselves do not issue in enlightenment liberation. That means only deep concentration itself will not liberate you, will not free you. As lofty and peaceful as these attainments are, they can only suppress the defilements that sustain in the round of rebirths but cannot eradicate. And this is where all the yogic practices of deep concentration, they could not free a person, right? This is what Buddha discovered when he discovered Vipassana. To uproot the defilements at the most fundamental level and thereby yield the fruits of enlightenment and deliverance, the meditative process must be redirected towards the contemplation of things as they actually are, brackets vipassana meditation, which results in increasingly deeper insights into the nature of existence and culminates in the final goal, the attainment of arahantship. I think it is worthwhile to note, however, that as much as the Buddha encouraged abiding in these eight attainments as a path to liberation, he also states in Middle Discourses 70 that not all arahants, people who became completely free, go through the all eight jhanas. It is said that there are two kinds of people, those liberated in both ways and those who are liberated by wisdom. So there are two paths to the practice. One is the path to the jhana practice, the deep absorptions, deep concentration, which is one path, and second thing is the path of wisdom, the insight path. Those who are liberated both ways, liberated the physical and mental body, have gone through all the eight jhanas, whereas those who are liberated by wisdom may not. So important thing is that there are two paths. Insight path is like, one is that you develop so deep a concentration that leads to insight, that leads to those knowledges, or and more, second path is like something which is more suitable to the lay practitioners, is where you develop your mind enough for making it kind of deeply concentrated enough to practice insight, and then practice only insight, and which is like the second way, which is more suited way for lay practitioners, because like we cannot in the environment that we live develop those kind of deep absorptions. So that was just one context to this. Okay. Okay, fine. So I was
I
saying,
think this is better than body scan meditation. Like what we just did now.
yeah,
It is better than body scan only.
yeah, you are saying it is easier or better? I mean, I didn't get your question.
Better and easier also. Easier also.
Yeah. See, if you see the SN Goenkaji's tradition, they have their tradition in which there are the standard courses and all. So there they have the initial anapan meditation for some days, 2, 3, 4 days, and then the vipassana that SN Goenkaji teaches is the most of kind of, it's like body scan only, where you keep witnessing the sensations. You go from top to bottom or bottom to up and keep witnessing the bodily sensations. So it's very heavy on the bodily sensations front. Uh, Here the focus is on anything that arises, and this is, to me, as per my little understanding, is more aligned to the Satipatthana, which is anything, body, mind, feelings, objects of the mind. So uh, yes, that is, yeah. Okay. So this Satipatthana Vipassana ebook is also there. It contains in detail of what, you can also refer that to get more clear understanding. Okay. So we will just read some words from the book. Uh, so it cannot be that we don't do that. And this is the book Old Path, White Clouds. We'll just read for like 15 minutes. Just a second. Okay. Right. So we start. The bhikkhus told them whether the increase in number of people. So there was this thing that someone told the chief disciple of Buddha, that more and more people are joining Buddha's path. So Buddha told them whether the increase in numbers of people accepting the path as their own is good news or not depends on how.
Abhinavji,
Yeah,
could you please tell me the page number?
yeah. Page number is 362.
Okay, okay.
Have you bought the book?
Yes, I have the book.
Actually, you have the book. Then okay, you
Yes,
can
yes.
also read if you want to read. You If you want to read, you can read some pages. Page
No,
362.
no, no. You do, please.
Okay, okay, okay. No, okay, fine. Because I've attended like sangha meetings in Plum Village. So what they do in book readings, uh, turn by turn also they read. I just was reading because I thought no one has the copy of the book. Okay, I'll read. But if you feel, please do let me know. And some
Sure,
session
sure,
you
sure.
can also read. Okay,
Sure, sure.
okay. This is page 362, and the Buddha told them whether the increase in numbers of people accepting the path as their own is good news or not depends on how diligent the bhikkhus are in their practice. We should not cling to concepts of success or failure. We should look at both fortune and misfortune with equanimity. One morning, as the Buddha and the bhikkhus prepared to leave the monastery to go begging, several police entered Jetavana with orders to search for body of a woman. The bhikkhus were dismayed, not understanding why the police expected to find a woman's corpse on the monastery's grounds. Venerable Bhadia asked who the woman was and and was told she was a young woman named Sundari who belonged to a large religious sect in Savatthi. The bhikkhus recognized the name as belonging to an attractive young woman who in recent months had attended several Dhamma talks at the monastery. The bhikkhus told the police there was no chance her body would be found at Jetavana, but the police insisted on looking anyway. To everyone's surprise, they found the body buried in a shallow grave not too distant from the Buddha's hut. No one could understand how she had died and why she had been buried there. After the police departed with the body, the Buddha told the bhikkhus to go out begging as usual. Dwell in mindfulness, he told them. Later that same day, Sundari's sect members of the Sundari sect carried her body throughout the city, wailing in loud voices. They stopped at intervals and cried out to the people, "This is the body of Sundari." Her broken body was discovered in a shallow grave at Jetavana monastery. Those monks who claimed to come from the noble line of the Sakya, who claimed to live chaste, pure lives, they raped Sundari, killed her, and then tried to hide her body. Their talk of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity is nothing but a sham. See for yourselves. The citizens of Savatthi were disturbed. Even some of the most solid disciples of the Buddha felt their faith waver. Others were convinced that the whole affair had been orchestrated to harm the Buddha's reputation, and they suffered deeply. Other spiritual sects, which felt threatened by the Buddha, seized the opportunity to openly condemn and malign the Sangha. The bhikkhus were interrogated and heckled wherever they went. They did their best to maintain their serenity and to dwell in mindfulness, but it was difficult, especially for bhikkhus still new to the practice. Many young bhikkhus felt shamed and no longer wanted to beg in the city. The Buddha gathered the bhikkhus together one afternoon and spoke to them. Unjust accusations can occur anywhere at any time. There is no need for you to feel ashamed. The only cause for shame would be if you ceased your efforts to live your pure life of practice. This false accusation will spread and then it will pass away. Tomorrow when you go begging, if anyone asks you about this affair, simply answer, whoever is responsible will reap the fruits. The bhikkhus were much comforted by the Buddha's words. Meanwhile, Lady Visakha, who was greatly disturbed over the affair, went to see Sudatta. Together they discussed the matter at some length. They agreed to secretly hire someone to make an investigation in order to uncover the real culprits. They shared their plan with Prince Cheta, who agreed to help them. Within 7 days, the secret investigator discovered who the actual killers were. The two men responsible became drunk and began to argue over their spoils. In their angry, drunken state, they let the truth slip out. Royal police were summoned and the men were arrested. They made a confession and told the police how they were hired by the leaders of Sundari's sect to kill her and bury her near the Buddha's hut. King Pasenadi visited Jetavana at once to share the news that the killers had been found. He expressed his unwavering faith in the Sangha and his joy that the truth would now be known to all the people. The Buddha asked the king to forgive those responsible for the crime. He also said that similar crimes could happen again unless people learned to overcome their hatred and jealousy. The people of Savatthi once again regarded the bhikkhus with great admiration and respect. Next, we come to chapter 55, which is Appearance of the Morning Star. One day, the Buddha and the Ananda visited a small monastery located just outside the city. They arrived when most of the bhikkhus were out begging. As they strolled out the monastery grounds, they suddenly heard a pitiful groan coming from one of the huts. The Buddha entered the hut and found an emaciated bhikkhu curled up at one corner. A terrible stench filled the air. The Buddha knelt beside him and asked, "Brother, are you ill?" The bhikkhu answered, "Lord, I have dysentery. Isn't anyone looking after you?" "Lord, the other brothers have gone out begging. There is no one here but me. When I first fell ill, several other brothers did try to take care of me. But when I saw I was of no use to anyone, I told them not to bother with me anymore." The Buddha told Ananda, "Go fetch some water. We will bathe our brother." Ananda brought a bucket of water and helped the Buddha bathe the sick bhikkhu. They changed his robe and lifted him back onto his bed. The Buddha and Ananda then scrubbed the floor and washed the bhikkhu's soiled robes. They were hanging the robes out to dry when the other bhikkhus returned. Venerable Ananda asked them to boil some water and prepare medicine for their brother. The community invited the Buddha and Ananda to eat with them. After the meal, the Buddha asked them, "From what illness is the bhikkhu in that hut suffering?" "Lord Buddha, he has dysentery." "Has anyone been caring for him?" "Lord Buddha, at first we tried to look after him, but then he asked us not to." Bhikkhus, when we leave our homes to follow the way, we leave our parents and family behind. If we don't look after each other when we are sick, who will? We must care for one another. Whether the ill person is a teacher, a student, or a friend, we must tend to him until he has regained his health. Because if I were sick, would you tend to my needs? Yes, certainly, Lord Buddha, they all said. Then you must tend to the needs of any bhikkhu who falls ill. Caring for any bhikkhu is the same as caring for the Buddha. The bhikkhus joined their palms and bowed. The next summer, the Buddha stayed at Eastern Park in Savatthi. At the same time that Bhikkhuni Mahapajapati was teaching a large community of nuns in Savatthi. She was assisted by Bhikkhuni Khema, who once had been one of King Bimbisara's wives. She had become a disciple of the Buddha 20 years earlier. At that time, her profound natural insight was somewhat marred by her arrogance. But after receiving instruction from the Buddha, she learned humility. After only 4 years of practice as a lay disciple, she asked to be ordained. She was most diligent in her practice and was now an important teacher and leader amongst the nuns. Lady Visakha regularly visited her and the other bhikkhunis. One day she invited Sudatta, also known as Anathapindika, the philanthropist who had purchased the Jeta Grove for the Sangha, to accompany her. She introduced him to sisters Khema, Dhammadina, Utpalavanna, and Patakara. Lady Visakha later told him she knew them before they became nuns. Another day, Sudatta visited the Bhikkhuni's center with a male friend, also named Visakha, who was a relative of Bhikkhuni Dhammadina, a well known teacher amongst the nuns. The two men listened to Bhikkhuni Dhammadina give a Dhamma talk on the five skandhas and the Noble Eightfold Path. Namo Buddhaya Snehaji, Namo Buddhaya. Thanks for joining. Dhamma talk on the five skandhas and the Noble Eightfold Path. Vishakha was astonished by her profound grasp of subtle truths. When he returned to Jetavana, he told the Buddha everything Bhikkhuni Dhammadina had said. The Buddha replied, "If you asked me about the same subjects, I would have said the very same things as Sister Dhammadina. She has truly grasped the teachings of emancipation and enlightenment." The Buddha turned to Ananda and said, "Ananda, please remember Sister Dhammadina's discourse and repeat it to the entire community of monks. Her discourse is an important one." I have not read this discourse as of now. There is actually a specific section in the whole scheme of discourses, which is verses by senior nuns. Maybe it is in that. Bhikkhuni Kapilani is also known for her grasp of the Dhamma. Like Sister Dhammadina, she was often invited to travel to offer the teaching. The story of Bhikkhuni Patakara was heart-wrenching. She was the only daughter of a wealthy family in Savatthi. Her parents were overly protective of her and never allowed her to leave the house. All day long, she was required to stay inside. Thus, she never had a chance to meet many people. When she reached an age suitable for marriage, she fell in love, without her parents' knowledge, with a young servant in their household. When her parents arranged for her to marry the son of another very wealthy family, Patakara urged her secret lover to run away with her. Early on the morning she was to be married, she disguised herself as a servant girl and pretended to go outside to fetch water. As soon as she was outside, she met her lover and they fled to a distant village where they were married. 3 years later, Patakara became pregnant. When she neared her time, she asked her husband to take her to her parents' house to give birth there, as was the custom. Her husband was reluctant, but because she insisted, he agreed. But halfway there, Patakara went into labor and delivered a son. As there was no longer any need to return to her parents' home, they went back to their own village. 2 years later, Patakara was again with child. Again, she insisted her husband take her to her parents' house. This time, they met with a tragedy. Along the way, a storm broke just as she was going into labor. Her husband asked her to wait by the side of the road while he entered the forest to cut some branches to make a shelter. Patakara waited for a long time, but her husband did not return. In the middle of the night, surrounded by rain and wind, she gave birth to a second son. At dawn, she lifted her newborn son in one arm and held her other son's hands and entered the forest to look for her husband. She found him dead from a poisonous snake bite. She wept bitterly for a long time. Then she stood up and headed with her two sons towards her old home in Savatthi. At last, she reached the river. The waters were swollen from the rain, making the water too deep for her first son to wade across. She told him to wait on the bank while she carried the baby safely on the other side first. She held the infant over her head as she walked through the deep waters. When she was halfway across, a mighty eagle swept down and grabbed the baby in its talons. She screamed at the bird to release her child, but it flew away. When her other son heard her cries, he thought she was calling him to join her. When Patakara turned around, she saw him stepping into the rushing waters. She shouted at him to wait, but it was too late. The strong currents swept him away, and she was unable to save him. At last, Patakara crossed to the other shore and collapsed on the banks. When she came to, she stood up and walked for several days until she reached Swavati. When she finally arrived, she learned that her parents' home had been destroyed in the storm and both her parents killed when a wall collapsed on them. Patakara had returned on the same day her parents' body were being cremated. Patakara collapsed by the side of the road. She no longer wanted to live. Some people took pity on her and took her to see the Buddha. He listened to tell her she listened to her tell her story and he told her in a gentle voice, Patakara, you have suffered terribly, but life is not only suffering and misfortune. Be brave, practice the way of enlightenment, and one day you will be able to smile even at your most painful sufferings. You will learn how to create new peace and joy in the present and for the future. Patakara bowed and asked to take the refuges. The Buddha entrusted her to Sister Mahapajapati's care. Soon afterwards, Patakara was ordained as a bhikkhuni. She was deeply loved by Sister Mahapajapati and the other bhikkhunis. After several years of practice, she learned to smile again. One day, while washing her feet, she watched the streams of water disappear back into the earth. And she had sudden insight into the nature of impermanence. This is what we say, that we keep practicing, and one fine moment, it just happens. We get that insight, and this is where the person enlightens. She held that image in her mind during her meditation for several days and nights, and one dawn she broke through the problem. Sorry. She held that image in her mind during her meditation for several days and nights, and one dawn she broke through the problem of birth and death. Spontaneously, she wrote a poem, and we'll just read the poem. The other day, while washing my feet, I watched the streams of water flow back into the heart of the earth. I asked, to where does the water return? Contemplating in serene silence, mind and body held in mindfulness, I looked into the nature of the six sense objects. With the spirit of a strong, quick horse, staring at the oil lamp wick, I concentrated my mind. Time passed quickly, the oil lamp still shone. I took a needle and pushed the wick down. The light was instantly extinguished, submerging all in darkness. The flame was extinguished, but suddenly my soul was bright. My mind was released from all bondage as the morning star appeared. When Patakara presented her poem to Sister Mahapajapati, the abbess gave it her deepest praises. So we'll close it here. It's very deep today's kind of reading that we did, and this story of Patakara. We can reflect on it at our end and keep practicing on the way with full dedication, right? So anyone wants to share anything or ask anything, please feel free to do so. In the meanwhile, just let me check. We complete at page 370 and we'll continue from there. So, okay. So we'll close it for today and then we meet tomorrow, 7 p.m. Thank you so much for joining, Deepji, Snehaji. Thank you so much. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya.